But there are other duchesses in our aristocratic firmament, and they're married to dukes. They don't have any connection with the royal family, but they're at the sort of the very top of the aristocratic tree, if you like. They don't have any obligations at all. They can just be merry duchesses and have a good life. But there are obligations, I think, on those who are given royal dukedoms and royal duchesses. And of course, we've seen what happens when things go slightly awry. I mean, Prince Andrew lost not only his princeship, but also his royal dukedom. Highly unusual move this year. But other royals with Duchess titles, of course, are Sophie, the Duchess of Edinburgh, Sophie Wessex, and she's a very hard-working member of the royal working team around the king. So I think there are obligations about work and duty, for sure. But above and beyond that, no, it's largely ornamental.
There are some who have some inherited duties. I was just thinking you were talking about the Duke of Norfolk, who was very involved in coronation and so on.
Well, the Duke of Norfolk is our most senior Roman Catholic figure in this country, and he has obligations in that role for running coronations, state funerals, and he is the sort of the go-to man when there is a big public occasion which involves the use of a cathedral or possibly even a royal palace. But anyway, yeah, that's true. But he's a one-off.
And there's, of course, the issue of something like the Duchy of Cornwall, which is obviously a slightly different thing. But if you are the Duke of Cornwall, you get an income. You
have a very handsome income, an enormous income in Prince William's case. As Duke of Cornwall, which he inherited when he took over from his father, he has this great trove of land, property, and other resources from which he derives all his private income.
Well, I hope we've answered that question for you, C-Pols. As always, please do leave your questions and comments below. And an unexpected twist, actually, I have a question for you, the viewer. Yes, you. This year, Palace Confidential is looking to host a live event where you or your friends will be able to watch our panel discuss the latest royal news in person. If that's something you'd be interested in. Let us know your thoughts below. Where should we host it? What you'd like us to talk about and so on. And we're going to really try and make it happen. It will be Joe in the hot seat, but I can assure you I'll be in the audience somewhere. And also, we should say, we love the comments we get. We get so many of them and we're always so thrilled to hear from you. But if you've never commented before, maybe take this year as the chance to do so. We want to hear you. You can join the royal conversation. We'd love to hear what you have to say. But for now, though, we've still got lots more to talk about. So I'm going to go back to the panel. We're going to stick just for a moment with the former Prince Andrew. Rebecca, Christmas and the New Year brought some more unfortunate headlines and stories for him and the royals. I'm thinking first about more information about the ex-Duke and his friendship with the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. What can you tell us?
Yeah, and it's interesting. I think I was reading the other day that only 1% of the Epstein, files have been released. So goodness knows what's around the corner. And it feels like a while ago, but it's definitely worth reiterating that in another dump of emails, we had a couple of really, truly extraordinary moments. There was a photograph of Andrew. How do I describe it? Laying across the laps of a number of ladies in Sandringham, which would have then have been Queen Elizabeth's private home. In itself, I mean, I heard some people commenting, well, it's just, a fun night amongst friends. But again, the fact this picture was in Epstein's possession, I think, also paints another picture. And I think more troublingly for me, there were a number of emails sent by someone using the code name of Invisible Man. But I don't think anyone is going to, be in trouble for putting two and two together and coming up with Andrew Mountbatten Windsor for this.
Even that's a creepy title.
It is, yeah. And it's from a kind of Pipex email, which he's known to have used in the past privately. And some of those were emails between him and Ghislaine Maxwell. And in one, they're discussing a kind of forthcoming, visitor meeting. And Andrew actually says, have you got any more inappropriate friends for me to play with? And Ghislaine replies, oh, well, I only have, something we'll discover at our next kind of church chapter meeting, but I only have appropriate friends at this stage. And he's like, oh, how disappointing. I mean, I think Richard Eden's reaction says it all. But the one that I found most disturbing was he was talking about a forthcoming trip he had to Peru, which was an official visit on behalf of the royal family, his job as a trade ambassador. And Ghislaine was obviously setting him up with a tour guide that she knew and had used out there. And some of the language was just absolutely ghastly. And he was talking about, she was telling him about how to this tour guide that he wasn't very good on a horse and maybe skip, the horse riding trips he'd planned, but he was very interested in some two-legged sightseeing, and how he would like, girls that were kind of well-spoken, intelligent, from good families. And, Andrew kind of says casually, well, I'll leave that all up to you. And again, I think it tells you really quite a lot about the man we're talking about.
Just earlier, Rebecca, we were getting ready for the show, and we had some breaking news about his former home, Andrew's former home, Sunninghill Park.
Well, this was the former marital home of the then Duke of York and the Duchess of York, which, as we know, as we've discovered many years ago now, kind of after their divorce, languished on the market for many, many years without a buyer, and then suddenly, miraculously, was sold to the son-in-law of the president of Kazakhstan, and I'm not sure I'm going to pronounce this right, but I'll try, Timur Kulibayev. And he paid £15 million, which is actually £2 million over the asking price, this property that Andrew and Sarah had been unable to sell. Now, questions have been raised by the BBC over the money that was used to buy this place, which obviously was pocketed by Andrew and Sarah personally. And it has been found by Italian prosecutors that Mr. Kulibayev used money from a firm that has been very strongly linked with bribery and money laundering. He's been in touch with the BBC to say he has done nothing wrong, but of course it raises further questions about Andrew's association with people like this, and whether he and his staff did any due diligence to find out where this money had been coming from. And I think, the suggestion is he was so desperate to find a buyer and pocket the proceeds. The answer is probably no.
Yes, as you say, Andrew continues to deny all these allegations against him. Richard Kay, the one thing that has come up in some quarters, and we should address it, is that we're talking about this Sunningdale Park, the people he was working with, getting close to, and Jeffrey Epstein, and then the lies he's told that subsequently. There are questions, obviously, more questions for him, but there are also questions people are asking of both the royals and the people who worked for them as to why more checks and why this is only coming to light now and why more of it wasn't stopped.
That's perfectly true. I mean, it's always easy after the event to raise the questions and wonder why things weren't said and done at the time. I think it goes to the very heart of what you're dealing with. You're essentially dealing with a family rather than a corporation where there might be other balances and checks. And the writ of the members of the royal family runs large, and Andrew was a very arrogant man, as we know, was very confident that he always knew the right thing to do, and he reserved the right not to be questioned on issues that he'd taken a decision on, or to reject any advice he'd been given on it. He was supremely sure of himself. It has been a shattering experience, therefore, to see how all his decisions have helped bring about his destruction, really. I guess there are questions, Luke. In a perfect world, we could be asking, why weren't the advisors telling him? But as Rebecca's already hinted, does he take the advice? In my experience, he rarely did. Did he listen to it? Again, no. If it wasn't what he wanted to hear, he'd zone out. Ultimately, we mustn't dodge responsibility here. It's Andrew who is responsible for the decisions he took.
Now, we have so much to talk about today that we haven't even got round to touching on the King's Christmas message. And for those of you not here in the UK, that's the annual and much discussed broadcast made by the monarch on the big day itself. Rebecca, what was your main takeaway from his message?
Actually, my main takeaway from his message was actually the footage of him, because he looked really well in it. And of course, when that was filmed, I don't think we were aware yet. We found out fairly soon after that he was going to be he was going to, in a fortunate position, he was going to be able to wind down his cancer treatment in the new year. So I actually thought, in hindsight, oh my God, he looks really well, ruddy-cheeked and really happy, and that actually explains a lot. In some ways, it was classic, Christmas message fare, some pointed remarks, and also in some of the footage and the use of the Ukrainian choir, I thought. He chose a very spiritual place that has strong links with the royal family, Westminster Abbey. It was the second time he'd taken his royal broadcast out and about. I think maybe the cancer treatment has made the king slightly more religious even, I think, than he was. And I do think there was a strong flavour of that, echoing what his mother had done before him.
We've talked about that relation with Catherine as well. We'll have to revisit that on a future show at some point. Yeah. Richard Kay, though, you wrote that among the plaudits there were a few people who were unhappy with some of the content, and the disgruntlement came from an unlikely quarter, perhaps.
Yes, I suppose that there's always unhappiness when the king issues his Christmas broadcast. People who are diametrically opposed to what he says. I mean, in many ways, it was a very it had a real religious flavour, I thought, this year, and his faith is something which he takes extremely seriously. And there was a lot of talk about community, and interpreted by many people, and I think particularly those on the right, as embracing diversity, embracing immigration. Britain is currently convulsed by the immigration debate, and the king has studiedly remained above the fray. But very occasionally he will intervene in a rather nuanced way, and I think a lot of people interpreted the comments that he made on Christmas morning as being as someone who is urging us to accept the new arrivals among us. And it was interesting that a lot of these comments were coming from people who professed to be Christian, professed to be supporters of the royal family, and yet who suggested in their remarks that they were rather disenchanted with what the king was saying.
It's very interesting. I mean, was your view? Do you think it was as political as some people were claiming?
No, it was not. It was not a political speech. He doesn't do that. Certainly not on Christmas morning. But he does tend to say what he's thinking and what he's feeling about things. I think it is the one time of the year where he is allowed to have more of a free hand in his remarks to the nation. In fact, don't forget, it wasn't just to us he was speaking. He was speaking to the Commonwealth around the world too. And I think we kind of allow it. We like it. We like it because it gives us a rare insight into the real Charles, if you like. No, for my money, it was a classic Christmas address.
Let's move now across the pond to the Montecito royals. Now, Richard, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle have seen even more members of staff leave. It seems just quite extraordinary as carries on. Richard Eden, tell us the latest.
Oh my goodness, yes. I mean, you might remember that when Harry and Meghan quit royal duties, they left the Royal Foundation, which they were part of with William and Catherine, and they had great ambitions to set up their own charitable foundation. I think they had visions of being sort of like the Obamas or the Clintons and having this really powerful foundation that would raise money and dish it out and support causes around the world. And they appointed a lot of people to work for this foundation. Well, it was our colleague Alison Boshoff first got wind of this, and she was told that they were abolishing the foundation altogether. Well, the Sussexes would stress they haven't done that, but what they have done is abolish the foundation. Essentially, they've got rid of everyone. They've made everyone redundant who worked for it, apart from one person, and even she works for several other people as well. And they've changed the name of it, so it's no longer Archewell Foundation. It's now something called Archewell Philanthropies. But to basically sum it up, what it is they'll now be sort of handing out money as they see fit. I think we got a taste of that when Harry most recently came to Britain and handed out a cheque for £1.1 million to children in need. but they won't have all the bureaucracy and admin that goes with running your own foundation. But it's a real scaling down of ambitions, and frankly, I would say it's a disaster for their ambitions.
It's also interesting because though this is a slightly different case with some, it looks, at least to the outside, it's a different case of those who've left their employ. You still wonder who would want to work for them now, given the revolving door of staff.
Let's be clear, there's some big names who have left them. I mean, one who our viewers might recognise was an American lady called Meredith Maines. The reason our viewers might recognise her is she was in that photograph of that important meeting which the Mail on Sunday managed to get photographs of. They were sitting on a balcony overlooking a park in London, where it was basically a sort of get-together, a peace summit as it was portrayed, between people representing the King and Meredith and another figure representing Harry and Meghan. So she's gone, and also significantly James Holt. Now this is a man who I think fancied himself as a bit of a TV star. He was loving it when he appeared extensively in their tawdry programme Harry and Meghan for Netflix. He was going on about, you know, how great they are, and he was joining in, being rude about the royal family, and he worked for them. He worked for the palace, and he was their only employee who stuck by them loyally, and he's been their biggest cheerleader. Well, he has gone back. They said the reason is because he wanted to go back to Britain for family reasons, and he's still happy to carry on working for Harry and Meghan if they do tours abroad or things like that. But the fact is, he's no longer a member of their staff with them in California, and it's very significant.
Richard Kay, can you think of any royals who've had anything like the sort of turnover of staff?
Well, one does spring to mind, the late Princess of Wales, Princess Diana. But her turnover tended to be on her domestic team rather than on the professional people that Richard was just talking about. Nevertheless, she did get through an awful lot of people. But her situation was slightly different from Prince Harry's and Meghan's. She wasn't in self-imposed exile. She was remaining still very much at the heart of the royal family and was still being asked to do royal duties. But nevertheless, there were times, and I think predominantly in those years after she separated from Prince Charles, as he then was, where she found her position tough, and she was quite a demanding boss.
And that's why, do you think they didn't enjoy working for her? It was a very difficult scenario. Is that why she got rid of them?
Well, one of the reasons why she got rid of some of them was because her position was downgraded post-separation, but also because she was very demanding, and she wanted complete loyalty from the team around her. She, as we know from the endless saga involving Martin Bashir and Panorama, she didn't trust many of the close members of staff who were, you know, very much attached to her, and it sort of undermined her trust in all the people she employed, and she went through a phase where she got through quite a number of people and then consolidated on a very small number towards the end.
The times that you were with her and her staff, what was the interaction like? How did she get on with her staff generally?
She was brilliant, and the staff adored working for her. I mean, they were always known by her and by themselves as the A-team, because Prince Charles was very much the B-team. And that was something that the staff who were part of her life were very proud of. But you know, it was difficult. Allowances had to be made, and often she didn't really make them, possibly because of the pressures that she was under herself.
Absolutely fascinating. We'll have to get you talk more about those days with you another day, Richard. But I'm going to bring us back to to Harry and Meghan just for a moment, Rebecca. Eden was talking there about the ambitions being downgraded by Harry and Meghan for their philanthropic aims. What's your reading on it? Is that where you see it? Do you think they are changing how they see what their role is and what they're able to do?
I'm not sure it's a question of them changing what they see their role as. I think they have no choice but to change it, because it hasn't been the huge success globally that they wanted it to be. And essentially, as Richard says, is right, my understanding of it, as I'm not a charitable expert, is that instead of raising their own funds, they're going to be kind of channeling funds that are donated to them, which means, it's a very, very different kettle of fish. I think they thought they would be, raising millions a year because people would be investing in them and they would be kind of, putting out these bountiful gifts to everyone, and that's just not happened. So I think it is a very interesting sign, not that they're making it out that way at all, because they're saying, no, we can be more effective this way. But, I think the truth is that they've had to adjust their plans and their, global ambitions.
One plan they're trying to make at the moment, Richard, is the issue of security. We know that Harry's trying to get his security status here in the UK changed. And the Mail on Sunday at the weekend reported that Harry's camp are very confident that a review of his security arrangements will mean that he will get taxpayer-funded police protection. Tell us more about this.
Yeah, this is a big month for Prince Harry and Meghan. I mean, not only does Harry have his court case against the owners of this newspaper, which has been building up for a long while, but he's due to find out about this review into his security. Well, look, it's extraordinary that there is a review at all. The reason is because Harry took legal action against the Home Office after his automatic taxpayer-funded security was withdrawn, and he lost. He lost that appeal because they said, it doesn't apply to you because you don't live in Britain. So the fact he's having a review is extraordinary, and as sources close to the Harry and Meghan have suggested to our colleague Charlotte Griffiths, that gives them great confidence that they're going to win it, because they say there are threats to us and we can show that. So they think it's going to be restored. And this really does open things up again. I mean, I can't really get my head around it. So they may be due to have automatic taxpayer-funded protection, whereas other working members of the royal family, such as Princess Anne, who, don't forget, was the victim of an attempted kidnap years ago, only have police protection when they're carrying out royal duties. So, why Harry and Meghan would have that when they're swanning around trying to make their fortune, it's breathtaking to me.
Well, I know you've written about this in your column for Mail Plus today. We'll put a link to that also in the description below. But Rebecca, Richard's right, this is going to throw up a huge amount of questions if it does go through. And it's hard to see that it would be a popular move among the public.
The whole situation's fascinating because effectively Harry has admitted, I did the wrong thing in taking, not that he would ever publicly admit it, of course, but people close to him have said, actually, he probably did the wrong thing by going to court. He should have used backroom methods of lobbying, which is what he is very openly doing now. Now, obviously, the Met Police and the Home Office don't ever comment on royal security because by the very nature, it needs to be secret and secure. But Harry's team seem very keen to make public what they're doing through various channels. So I'm sure if he successfully regains the right to automatic security, his team will find a way of making this known. What I thought was very fascinating, actually slightly sinister in this piece in our sister paper, the Mail on Sunday, was that sources close to Harry are saying he is so confident because he's lobbying the Home Office and the Home Secretary personally about this. He's so confident of getting this back. If he doesn't, the only reason we think he will be refused it is a sign that Buckingham Palace have meddled in this to ensure he doesn't get security. Now that to me was very menacing and very threatening, and almost trying to cover his bases by saying, look, they want to give this back to me. They see the merit of my arguments, and if they don't, it's because those evil, grey-seated courtiers have meddled and are not allowing me to do it, and therefore are laying me open and my family to harm. So I found that very, very troubling indeed, and I'm sure members of the public will as well.
There are also questions one assumes about if he's going to be doing commercial work. If he's going to earn money, is he then entitled to be working here with taxpayer-funded police protection?
Well, his attitude, Luke, is that he is. The minute he sets foot on this soil, because of the threats that he believes are particularly pertinent to him in this country, and I assume probably because the fact that his American security team can't carry guns, for example, as they would do in America, he believes from the minute he sets foot on this soil that he and his entire family are entitled to 24-hour taxpayer-funded protection. Now, of course, I think he's made a point of only coming over and doing charity work, say, look, this is largely what I'm going to be doing here, but it doesn't stop him undertaking commercial activities if he wanted to. And I can imagine people would have, something to say about that.
And it does also, we've also discussed it on this programme before, it's the slightly extraordinary approach he takes when it comes to coming over here, i.e. not staying in the palace when offered, but choosing to stay in a hotel. It doesn't all sort of line up sometimes.
It doesn't, and he has been offered rooms and places within royal residences, particularly Buckingham Palace, to stay, and he's chosen not to. If his security situation changes, maybe he'd be more minded to stay in a royal residence because he knows that it would rack up a huge bill for taxpayers. Because people forget, without going into too much detail, it's not just the obvious police officers with kind of, tasers and guns hidden inside their suits that you see. You have to have backup teams. You have to have people out there wrecking the places before they get there. You have to have people on watch 24 hours a day. It is a huge operation for the Met to undertake that would cost probably each trip many hundreds of thousands of pounds, I would suspect, to cover. So, there's big implications for the Met Police and their existing budget, I would have thought as well.
The other thing, whenever we discuss security here, Richard Kay, it's one that often comes up in the comments, and it's come up in other stories as well. I know we certainly talked about this on the show before. It's one thing having police protection here, where he's from, where the army who he served, the son of the monarch. But if he were to be designated an internationally protected person, which some have claimed is his aim, that would demand that taxpayers funded security from police, say, in America, where he lives. It's a big question that it's a potential can of worms, isn't it?
It is. It's a very big question, and it places the ball very firmly in President Trump's court. President Trump, we know, is on record as not being the greatest fan of Prince Harry, or particularly of Prince Harry's wife, Meghan. And it does open up a real can of worms for Harry's existence in America. Will the FBI or the Secret Service have to provide him with the kind of protection that they would if he were a working member of the British royal family who happened to be visiting the US? And as Rebecca says, it would be a round-the-clock commitment. There have been some very conservative estimates of Harry's security bill since he's been living in America. And many people have suggested there's not much change from $10 million a year. Now, are American taxpayers going to be asked to pick up a sizable chunk of that as well? I think that might be a real problem with Harry and Meghan's fans in America to answer.
Look, Princess Anne or Prince Edward might have IPP status when they make a visit to the USA, for example, and they're given protection. That's one thing, and I think Americans would understand that. But when you've got a couple who live there having protection 24 hours, that's a whole different kettle of fish. I think there'd be outrage there as well as in Britain.
It's basically putting him on the same pedestal as diplomats and visitors to the United States. But again, Harry's not a diplomat. He's not representing the king, the monarchy, Great Britain. He's a resident of California who's chosen to live there, and because of his fame, notoriety, status, there is this element of perceived threat around him, and that's why he has to employ a large number of people to look after him. And to expect the Americans to have to meet that bill seems for the birds, if you ask me.
I know, just to add to that, I think, as someone very well placed said to me, he those decisions to leave the royal family, leave the country, were his to make. He's entitled to make them. But he has now become essentially a jobbing celebrity as a member of the royal family, and he's kind of made his bed and he's got to lie in it. That said, Harry has suggested throughout this process that he's been very angry with his father because he feels his father could intervene and change things. And I think it's really important to stress the king bears his son no ill will like that. He doesn't want any harm to come to him or his grandchildren, but he cannot get involved in this process. He simply cannot as a constitutional monarch. And so there's been, a lot of annoyance behind the scenes that the suggestion that Harry is, well, if you don't want me to have this, then you clearly want harm to come to me, and that's not the truth at all. No one wants that.
It is such a fascinating story, and one that we definitely will be covering closely here on Palace Confidential. But for now, do you hear that? Regular viewers will know that that fanfare heralds the time that we celebrate an unsung hero in or around the royal family. And we say unsung, but this week's recipient has just received an award. Richard Eden, tell me, who am I talking about?
Yes, this is the nanny to the Prince and Princess of Wales's children, who's Maria Teresa Turrion Borallo, who's been with them.
Beautifully said. I mean, I was going to say, I'm sure
I think that's
Spanish
correct. Anyway. She's been with the family for 12 years, and in the New Year's Honours list, she was made a member of the Royal Victorian Order, which, unlike other honours in such lists, is not from the government, but it's in the gift of the monarch, and it comes from the royal family. So it's a sign of their gratitude for all her hard work over the years, and I think the children have grown really to love her by all accounts.
And as we discussed earlier, very well brought up children, so Maria Teresa obviously has had a hand in that. And Richard Kay, looking back, nannies and governesses and the like have had very important roles in the royal family, haven't they?
Very. I mean, many young royals have their formative years have been shaped by the nanny and governess in their life. And when we think back to the young William and Harry, we remember Tiggy. We also remember Olga Powell when they were very small. Before that, Barbara Barnes. And Prince Charles's nannies were pivotal figures who remained through him throughout his adult life. Helen and
Mabel.
Helen and Mabel.
And the Queen, of course, had Bobo.
The Queen had Bobo, and these were important figures in their lives.
Because they would
helps
often
to have a distinctive name, I think.
Well, they would often, as you say, spend more time with the nannies than they would do with their own family, particularly when it came to King Charles and
Certainly
the Queen.
with Charles.
Yeah, particularly so.
Pivotal roles. From Maria to her employer now, and as we mentioned at the top of the show, all that time ago, this week is the 44th birthday of Catherine, the Princess of Wales, and to mark the occasion, here are 44 absolutely brilliant pictures of the birthday girl. Well, a very happy birthday from all of us here at Palace Confidential. A reminder that if you don't already, please consider subscribing to our YouTube channel. And if you like emails full of fascinating royal news, you can sign up for our Palace Confidential newsletter too. Just time to say thank you to Rebecca, to the Richards, Kay and Eden, and to you all for watching. Joe's back in the hot seat next week, and I'll be back behind the camera. Hope you can join us then.
Breaking today. A PR war of words between King Charles and Prince Harry about which royal has rejected whom. The monarch finally deciding to get tough on his wayward son, but lots of those within the royal institution, including courtiers close to Prince William, asking, "What took you so long, Your Majesty?" We will have all the latest on this developing royal story from Lady Colin Campbell imminently. But first, new reporting from Tom Sykes of the Royalist blog, who says that King Charles is now freezing out Harry, drawing a new line after the backlash to their last meeting. He reports King Charles III will not see his younger son when Harry returns to Britain later this month. A decision that marks a sharp and deliberate hardening of tone after what many inside the palace now privately concede was the costly misstep of meeting Harry last autumn. Could have told you that, sir. William told you that. It was a huge mistake. You'll remember Harry accused his father's staff of trying to sabotage his relationship with his dad after the son ran a story playing the significance of the meeting down. This time, Sykes reports the king won't be so easily bruised. He has arranged to be in Scotland while Harry is in the capital. Sources on Harry's side have told the royalists that the main reason the two men are not meeting is simple logistics, but the king's side are saying it is because the king does not want to be associated with Harry's court case. Earlier this week, the king's side briefed that there could be no meaningful reconciliation between Harry and the king unless he apologised for spare. For Prince William and others who believe the king's softness towards his, quote, darling boy has undermined the authority of the crown, the dramatic change of tone towards Harry will come as a profound relief. Immediately after the meeting, Harry repaid his father's indulgence by doubling down on his memoir spare. How dare he? Telling a journalist in Ukraine, from The Guardian, by the way, The Guardian, that, let me just remind you, wants the royal family overthrown and the United Kingdom altogether. He told this Guardian journalist that he didn't regret the scathing attack he launched on his family in the book. Sykes goes on. From the king's perspective, the timing could scarcely be worse. Charles has been acutely anxious about being dragged symbolically or otherwise into his son's increasingly aggressive litigation strategy. A source, unmistakably the palace press office, has now told the UK papers that the king has no wish to be linked to any court proceedings, adding that on this occasion he would prefer to give his younger son a, quote, wide berth. The phrasing is doing a considerable amount of work. It suggests constitutional propriety and judicial neutrality, but it also makes a more human calculation that the optics of another meeting with Harry, amid yet another round of legal and rhetorical warfare, would be politically disastrous. The king badly misread the public mood when he agreed to see Harry last September. That 50-minute meeting, briefed down afterwards as little more than tea and cake, emphatically not the Treaty of Versailles, was nonetheless interpreted by much of the public as what it clearly was: a significant olive branch, a step towards reconciliation with a son who has spent years attacking the institution his father embodies. The backlash was swift and unforgiving. To many, Charles looked weak, indulgent, and out of touch with the anger Harry has provoked by accusing the monarchy of cruelty and racism and emotional neglect, and by monetising those grievances on an industrial scale. So then we come to William. And William has made no secret of the view that his brother's behaviour is beyond the pale. To him, Harry crossed a line that cannot be uncrossed, and the idea of easy forgiveness is an anathema. That ruthless stance, but by the way, maybe ruthless, in my view, totally correct stance, far from damaging William, has proved extraordinarily popular. It evokes the late Queen's unyielding commitment to duty over personal feeling, a core competency of the institution. Charles has already learned belatedly the political value of siding with his heir on difficult family matters and his handling of Prince Andrew. When the king finally did what William had been urging him to do for years and stripped Andrew of his remaining privileges and moved decisively to marginalise him, the public response was overwhelmingly positive. He was too late, perhaps, but it was not too little for most of the public. Charles's indulgence towards Harry is particularly sensitive because of the separate and highly emotive issue of Harry's security. So, Lady Colin Campbell, a significant change coming from King Charles, a significant move coming from Buckingham Palace. What are you hearing? A very quick but personal message from me to you to let you know that the best way you can support Dan Wood and Outspoken is to subscribe to my Substack at www.outspoken.live. Substack is a free speech platform that protects me from big tech cancellation and lawfare. Paid annual or monthly subscribers get an extra hour of content with the Royal Uncancelled After Show available every weekday with no advertising whatsoever. You can also message me direct on there. That's www.outspoken.live.
Well, Dan, I have to tell you, I get where both you and Tom Sykes are coming from with this, but I take a slightly more muted view of the whole thing, because I fully understand why any father would want to leave the door open for his very troubled son. And I do not also think, in fairness to Charles, that he has been weak or pathetic about any of this. I also do not agree with anybody, including the palace, that says that the king has handled the Prince Andrew business properly. I think it has been mismanaged from when the Queen was alive. Uh, I think and one of my great friends, who I think you might have met, is a former private secretary. And
Yes.
he's always taken the view that in fact the palace has handled the whole Prince Andrew thing shockingly from the word go, because Prince Andrew has never committed any crime that he has been charged with or convicted of, and that they should have come out very firmly from the very outset and said, well, what's the big deal? The man availed himself of the services of a 17-year-old prostitute who, by her own account, was paid $15,000 for giving him pleasure, according to her account. No crime was committed. It may have been distasteful, but it's no big deal. Let's move on. That is the message that the palace should, and I agree with my private secretary friend, that they have been very mealy-mouthed, and they have tried to suck up to critics and there are times when you suck up to critics and it's the worst possible thing you can do, because you give your enemy or your adversary another dagger with which to stab you. So where the Prince Andrew thing is concerned, I'm sorry, I believe that it has been mismanaged, and I am in favor of William's toughness in where certain things are concerned. But let's remember, Prince William was very precipitate, maybe possibly for good reason, to save the Earthshot price, where Lady Susan Hussey was concerned. But he didn't have to come out and be quite so brutal with what he said. He could have easily said, my understanding is that she is definitely not a racist. We will be looking into it. We do not tolerate racism. He didn't. He actually knew that he could throw her to the wolves and did so. And so let's be clear about the fact that Prince William, he can be very precipitate as well. And where Harry is concerned, I totally agree with William. Harry is way beyond the pale. They need to be absolutely brutal where Harry's concerned. And the king's lot have not been as brutal as they should have been. Part of the matter is that Charles is not the over that people are accusing him of being. He has been pretty tough with Harry from the word go. There's nothing new that he's refusing to take Harry's calls. He hasn't been taking Harry's calls or responding to Harry for some considerable length of time. So, I mean, that's my take on it. I agree with what you and Tom are about up to a point, but I also think that you're not giving as much credit to Charles as you could. And sometimes you're giving a little bit more credit to William than he deserves. That's my take on it. Sorry.
Interesting. No, I want to have a look, by the way, because William and Catherine, Lady C, have been making their first public appearance of the year over the past few hours, visiting Charing Cross Hospital in London to acknowledge the incredible work of NHS staff over what has been a difficult winter period. The couple are, of course, joint patrons of NHS charities together. I mean, I guess naturally, Lady C, I do have huge sympathy for William and Catherine, because I feel at the moment, in a lot of ways, they are holding this institution together. And there's pushback coming at them from all angles, Lady C. Much of it very unfair, and some of it, and I'm going to be very honest about this, and you know Tobin Andre, who is the main courtier for King Charles, director of communications now at Buckingham Palace, my former boss, actually, at the Daily Mail. So I know what's going on here. And much of this criticism of William and Catherine, I mean, how can you fault these two at the moment, is coming from Buckingham Palace. And a lot of this criticism, Lady C, was over this Times magazine cover over the weekend, which had the big headline emblazoned on the cover, Queen Kate. But you know as well as I do, Lady C, that she would have had no idea that this was going to be the headline that the Times magazine used. And I'm going to be honest with you, I think this criticism coming from Buckingham Palace, and I know it's coming from Buckingham Palace, directly to the Daily Mail, Tobin Andre's former employer, is completely out of line. Now, I guess you can say to me, well, Charles might not know that his courtier is responsible for this, but I find that hard to believe, Lady C.
Well, I don't. I find it very easy to believe that Tobin Andre has decided he's going to big up himself and he's going to play ball with his former fiefdom. I find it very easy to believe. And I mean, why? Come on, Dan. You know this world as well as I do, and you know that many of the courtiers and many of the employees at the palace who aren't even courtiers have red carpet fever, and that they all of a sudden get ideas about their station and they come out with things. I mean, Tobin Andre knows as well as you and I do that sub-editors are the ones who do headlines. They're not done by the journalists who write the articles. And also, you and I both know that as Tobin Andre ought to, and if he doesn't, he damn well should, that there is always a degree of tension between the monarch in waiting and the monarch in situ.
Absolutely.
And that it behooves the monarchy and behooves everybody concerned with the monarchy to play down the tensions, not play them up. But it seems to me as if Tobin Andre is being a typical journalist and cannot resist being a drama queen and cannot resist bigging up things that he should be playing down. That's my take on it. I don't think Charles is behind doing any of this. I'm sorry. I've had too much experience with the palace personally in terms of my writing and my books, etc. And I've had to tear strips off Jeff Crawford, what's the name of that other ridiculous one? Oh, God.
Oh, Donal McCabe.
Oh, Dickie Arbiter.
Dickie Arbiter, yes.
Dickie Arbiter. Yeah, and I've had to tear strips off Donald McCabe as well.
And these were formerly courtiers who worked for Queen Elizabeth II.
No.
But okay, well, look, let's just take it as read then that what you're saying is correct and that Charles doesn't know. I still want you to just comment on this criticism of Catherine. I mean, this is how Amanda Platel in the Daily Mail tried to frame the situation. Be careful, Kate. You don't realise it, but your inner circle may have inadvertently stabbed you in the back. And this is simply because a couple of people who she had worked with decided to speak in, I would argue, very anodyne ways to Kate Mansi for that cover feature in the Times magazine. And it just, to me, looks like jealousy. I mean, come on. You cannot say, Lady C, over the past 2 years that Catherine has been chasing media attention. It's quite the opposite. But first, quick gut check for the new year. Data leaks aren't rare, they're routine. When a major breach lands, it's millions of records in one blast. Phone numbers, home addresses, logins, sometimes much worse. And the nasty trick, that data gets traded indefinitely. Data brokers and people search sites buy and resell it on loop, so scammers, stalkers, even a nosy employer can surface far too much with a simple search. That's why I use Incogni. In a murky industry, it's the service independently verified by Deloitte. They send removal requests to hundreds of broker sites and private databases, chase the slow ones, and log confirmations as records are taken down. Getting started is simple. Create your account and share just enough to find your exposed profiles. Give Incogni one-time permission to act on your behalf. They launch the takedowns and keep following up so your data doesn't creep back online. The standout on the unlimited plan that I use is custom removals. Spot your details anywhere, so court portals, old company directories, people search results, that type of thing. Paste the exact link into your dashboard. Incogni's privacy specialists take it from there beyond the automated list. Unlimited links handled by real humans. It's low effort, it works, and it buys genuine peace of mind. They can't target you if they can't find you. So don't wait for the next breach. Go to incogni.com/outspoken now and get 60% off an annual plan. That's incogni.com/outspoken. Protect yourself, your loved ones, and your future. But now, back to the show.
But I don't think she has, and I don't think it's fair that she would be accused of chasing. But I do think that we need to remember that journalists are in the business of creating controversy and sensationalism to fill their requirements for content, and they are going to create dramas where none necessarily exist. And I think that's the situation. I do not think that Catherine has colluded with trying to steal attention from Charles or Camilla. And I do not actually think that Charles would be actually particularly blaming Catherine. I think he'd be pretty much more blaming the press, and he'd be absolutely right to blame the press. I mean, the press is not always the friend of the people it writes about.
No way.
And even when it's writing about them positively, it can be doing negative and destructive things at the same time, which is what's happening. Because don't tell me that all of these journalists do not understand that in a monarchy, it's a hierarchy, and that number one comes first, and that you do not pitch number two against number one and create problems where neither number one nor number two is pitching against each other. And I think that's what's happening here. I don't think it's the palace in terms of the principals, meaning the king and the queen and William and Catherine. I think it's the journalists taking full advantage. And let's also remember that Tobin Andre is a journalist.
Exactly, lady. On the actual matter at hand, though, Charles is right not to see Harry when he's in London for this court case against the Daily Mail, isn't he? That is the right decision from the king.
Oh, but there was never any question of him seeing Harry. I mean, my understanding is that he has been resolute in having absolutely nothing to do with Harry for some considerable length of time. You know, again, it becomes a press thing. Oh, today they're going to be making up. Tomorrow they're not going to be making up. My understanding is that the king has been absolutely resolute, indeed has the Queen and William and Catherine in keeping to the line that has been drawn, which Harry is to be starved of all attention. Harry is not to be communicated with. They have no interaction with Harry of any consequence. None. And let's remember that the whole business with Meredith Maines coming over with Tobin Andre was an approach by Harry's side.
Yeah. And she's now gone. Lady C, as part of the implosion of Archerwell, she's out. So, I mean, fat lot of good that did. But Lady C, what did you make of this briefing to the Mail on Sunday this week from the Sussexes that Prince Harry believes it is now nailed on that he will receive full security every time he visits the UK because of this stalker lady. See, this stalker, you know, who's basically an African fan of Prince Harry, who, as far as I'm aware, was not armed, posed no physical threat. This is going to be a terrible decision, isn't it?
And has been photographed with him and Meghan repeatedly all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
So all of a sudden, somebody who is a faithful follower of theirs is being presented as a stalker. So, I mean, that shows to what extent Meghan and Harry